G'day sports fans, welcome to The Roar, a Southland sporting podcast here on the Southland Tribune. My name's Nick Jeffrey and nice to have you in for, well, we're in double figures. Somehow we've done 10 weeks of this reincarnated podcast together with Active Southland's Nathan Burden and Logan Savoury of the Southland Tribune. How are we, gentlemen?
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Got an interesting one today. It's one close to your heart, Sav, because you brought the story to life in the Southland Tribune. We're going to speak with Dayna Cunningham at length today.
Yeah, obviously a very popular person in the rugby community as a former. Always played a few games for the Stags and a lot of games for Midlands, and now coach of Pirates Old Boys. But yeah, he sort of opened up. I think it must have been about November last year about his journey following weight loss surgery. I think it was, what did he say, 74 kgs. And I know, he was quite hesitant at the start about talking about it, but once we got the article out there, I think it's been quite positive. So, and as the listeners will hear, it is a pretty powerful story.
Really is. It makes a lot of us take a long, hard look at ourselves for some of the choices we're making in life, right?
Well, I think as he talks about, this is a bloke who went from struggling to be able to bend over to tie his shoelaces up to last Friday he rode almost 250k on the Westpac Chopper uphill ride. So that's
fair transport.
Definitely worth a listen.
No question about that. So looking forward to spending some time with Dayna shortly. His Pirates Old Boys team, we may as well start there with some club footy as well. They bounced back well from their first loss of the season. They gave Woodlands a decent old tickle up on the weekend. Yeah,
they probably would have been a little nervous going into that game because they'd...
You'd made this point. They'd actually had a reasonably soft start, with all due respect to the club season, but they've got themselves into the business end. And
I think there was a common theme out there that, Pirates Old Boys seems to be a lot better than everyone else. And it sort of, if you looked at the quirks of the draw, they hadn't actually played, Woodlands or Star. But they got the job done and quite comfortably in the end. And the scrum actually got demolished the week before against Barbarians, and it stood up against Woodlands. So, Dayna will be very happy with that.
So what a clash it's going to be this weekend. They take on Star, who got out to a 26-0 lead in the first quarter hour and put 50 on Barbarians too. They seem to be the comers of the competition.
Yeah, well, they've recruited pretty well in the off-season. Some might say the new Woodlands. I'm sure some of the star people might not be.
Headline.
No, but anyway, they've recruited relatively well in some key positions. They've got some good players. Samisi from the Stags, number 8. He played really well against the Barbarians, and they're very physical, and got some guys in the back line that can really light things up with Cole Spinks at fullback and Johnny Voili, the former Samoan international at centre, and I don't know if it's the right word, but he is quite erratic. But that is sometimes is the real danger point of him, because he can make things happen, and they have come a long way. So I'm intrigued what will happen against the Pirates Old Boys this weekend.
I guess the positive being, while we know, and we probably knew almost from the outset who the semi-finalists were going to be for our club competition, which obviously isn't ideal, at least those teams are actually having a good old ding-dong amongst the four of them.
Yeah, I don't think you could confidently pick out of the four teams who's going to win the comp. It is a pretty even, and I think a big thing it will come down to who's actually fit and healthy come those two crunch games at the end of the season. And some clubs, probably Pirates Old Boys, have got a bit more depth than others, and that may be key come the end of the season. But yeah.
Well, we'll be able to ask the coach shortly about what his take is on that. Marist able to defeat Blues by 32-12 in the other game. The other feature rugby result was the Landers, for the first time in something like 3 seasons, actually beating a New Zealand team. And it was the Crusaders that they held on and defeated by 32-29. And actually, to be fair, it was the Gore influence. Yes, Ethan de Groot, 2 from 2 as Highlanders captain. And young Cam Miller, come back any time, Cam.
Come home, Cam.
At 5'8", banging goals over from everywhere, finished with 27 points. And, the Highlanders now entrenched in the top 8 of Super Rugby.
And the last penalty that he kicked, I mean, when he was lining it up, I thought, well, this would be a nice one to get, because at that stage they did have a sort of a comfortable lead. but it ended up being absolutely
match-winning
pivotal.
goal, yeah.
And I think the last 2 weeks, he's really stood up. That's back-to-back games where he has been, a young guy in that pivotal number 10 jersey, and he's really putting it out there.
I think it just shows what time at that level takes. Because early in the season, I can't remember which game he started and probably didn't have his best game. And a few people going, oh, here we go, he's probably not up to it. Well, it's just time, I think. And he's, as you said, those last 2 weeks, he's really taken the game by the scruff of the neck. And, and I think we know that first five is a very pivotal position. The Crusaders are struggling, and obviously in that department, and the Highlanders had been sort of struggling to settle on a first five, and it looks like Cam's certainly making a good fist of it at the moment.
What do we know about his contract status? And
Just 1 year left.
1 year left.
Yeah.
The boy,
I was going to bring that up.
Boys must be taking him down to Vogel Street and shouting him. They do a good cinnamon brioche down there, so I've heard. And whatever they need to do.
Sean Worthy and your Jack Taylors and that, they've got a big job ahead of them, and that's to get Cam Miller.
Let's not put too fine a point on it, lads.
But I mean, look, it would make sense. He comes by
It would
himself.
make sense. It would make sense, Sav. I'm right there with you. Now, I reckon this is one of the stories of the last few weeks that we've got, and this is the Matilda Golf Club. They have done the unthinkable. They have lifted the Lang Shield from nightcaps, and in the process ended one of the most remarkable tenures in Southland sport.
Well, I think
Is it going a bit far?
I think a lot of people forgot that it was even played for, because Nightcaps won it in 2016.
August 2016.
And they've held it
There's a
since.
bit that's happened in the world since 2016.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's very true. It was sort of a bit of a shock when someone said, "Oh, Matera's won the Lang Shield." Oh, right, that's still played for, isn't it? That's right. Yeah, so I understand a pretty big night after that.
So.
They do spent a little bit of time at the Matilda Golf Club this season, and just talking to the guys there, there's some great volunteer efforts that go into that club. They do a really good job for a little country club. It's very, very pretty course. A lot of hard work going on there, sort of behind the scenes, not just to put out a really good course, but also the culture in the club rooms afterwards. So if the Lang Shield's going to go anywhere, then definitely that's a good place for it to land.
Sounds like it. So, close to 80 defences out of nightcaps. So it's pretty remarkable that it came to an end up and over the weekend. Also coming to an end, the Southern Steel's winning run. Can you call it a run when it's one game? Yeah. Man, they were in that fight too, actually, against the Magic. No Shannon Saunders, of course, so let's not underrate the impact that would have. But they were, they were in front early. They were tired going into three-quarter time, just ran out a bit of juice in the final quarter.
They had leads, and they did. I guess they sort of fell back on some of those things, and Rang and Bloxham even had referred to it, and we had her in a couple of weeks ago. I guess they just making compounding errors at the wrong times in games, and that's when you saw, even once the game was beyond them. To be honest, they deserved the bonus point, but then the score blows out to 9, and you wonder how that happened. They definitely weren't 9 goals worse than the Magic, but that's the final scoreline.
Yeah, if you looked at the scoreline, you think, oh, well, that was quite comfortable.
Yeah.
But for the majority of the game, Steel were actually leading for it and right in the contest, and unfortunately that final quarter hurt.
Same can't be said, unfortunately, for the Sharks, who now dropped to 0-10. 2 games on the road on the weekend. It was always going to be a tough road up against 2 of the potential title favourites, and the Taranaki Ears and the Frankton Bulls. But they weren't in the hunt in either of those, and in the end, 2 20-plus losses. She was a tough old weekend. Yeah,
and I guess, putting the losing streak aside, losing streaks happen, but probably just the manner of the losses has been the disappointing part of it. But I guess as we do, we look with the glass half full.
Probably because I'm standing here.
Probably.
I appreciate it.
They need to, and I think we've talked about that, they need to at least be competitive in those 6 home stretch coming up. Am I right? 6 home games in a row?
Yeah, so starting this week, there's six weeks in a row. They don't leave Invercargill for the next month and a half.
Yeah, so like for me personally, I just want to see them be competitive and take games deep. I'd love to be watching a Sharks game where they're actually in the contest in the final few minutes, and I don't feel like we've seen that much of late, and that's probably been a disappointing thing.
Can I just say though, look, I've covered teams who have gone through periods where they haven't been performing, and they can go dog really quickly. But and you are standing right in front of us, Nick. So, but despite that,
Hello.
I think and Guy. Obviously, Coach Guy, you can cut this bit out, can't you? Tidy it up for me. The coach had a good chat to you the other day, Sav. Like, you guys haven't hidden, you haven't gone dark, you haven't gone, you haven't gone feral on this whole thing. You've fronted the whole time and been pretty honest about it. And that's not always the experience that teams can do when they get into a bit of a hole like this.
Oh, no question. And look, at the end of it all, no one's satisfied with it, and that's particularly hard, I think, when you've come from an organisation that's been at the sharp end of things, right? Particularly. Now, without getting into the weeds too much, certainly the environment and the league itself has moved very quickly over the last couple of years, And to be fair, I just think that the model that has served an outfit like the Sharks really well isn't so much fit for purpose in the current NBL. Competitive balance has been driven. That's great, and it's a far more competitive league. But there's some real lessons to be learned in terms of what's required, and they're being received loud and clear. So I think the really heartening thing for me, and obviously being somewhat involved in the organisation, is that we still want to push forward. We still want to have a say. I mean, yes, the 10 games in and it's 0-10. There's no sugarcoating that. No one can sugarcoat it. But the reality is we're halfway. So there's a whole heap to come. And, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a lot from Coach Guy. He'll just keep saying, look, losing begets losing. You just need to get one. You need to get one. You need to get a little bit of luck to go your way, and you probably need that as well, and then, off you go. So, yeah, here's hoping. And I think, if anything, what we are committed to do, to your point, Sav, is to put a really good show on for 6 weeks at home, and that's what you want. I don't think anyone begrudges getting beat if you're in there competing, and the last thing you want to be doing is packing your tent up and going home early.
I thought the thing that shone out for me was Friday night when the Bulls brought on a couple of players, quite deep, probably the 8th or 9th players, and you think, well, these guys would potentially be starting for the Sharks or other teams, and you think that's probably highlight to what you were saying in the competition shift. Things have changed quite dramatically, isn't it? And some of the, particularly those Auckland teams, have got some real depth in their rosters, haven't they?
Well, the hard part too with it, and again, we can go into this in more detail at times, but the reality is trying to get players who are playing all year round and then getting them out of their homes becomes increasingly hard. So that makes it difficult when you haven't necessarily got the local catchment to be able to call into, which has always been the case from a Southland point of view. It's not a hotbed of basketball talent, as we know, but it's just far more competitive, that recruiting environment now. So that's not, you got to earn it, no question about that. No one's afraid of that. But yeah, very different situation. All right, let's talk about the other big news of the week, and that's the finalists being named for the ILT Southland Sports Awards. From Active Southland's point of view, together with the Southland Amateur Sports Trust, Nate, this is the showcase, really, of 12 months. And once again, when a list of finalists comes out, the quality of the names on the page, right, it just really strikes you. The levels that Southland is on a national and to a large degree international basis are performing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to a really strong celebration of Southland sport on June the 7th at Ascot Park Hotel. I'm sure the esteemed judge to the right of me would attest to the fact that coming up with these finalists was by no means an easy task. We've ended up going with an 8-8 finalist split with the seniors and juniors, and that's not unusual in the junior category. We always have these outstanding juniors across a really wide range of sports, but when I look at these the senior sports person of the year finalists, you've got a Sheldon Baggery-Howley, who was New Zealand Bowler of the Year. You've got Ethan de Groot, who played in a World Cup rugby final. You've got Amy Duplessis, who was one of the real improvers with the Black Ferns last year and really commanded a starting spot in the midfield in that post-World Cup year. You've got Kate Heffernan, who was voted mid-quarter of the year at the Netball World Cup across all the teams, in a team that finished fourth. She was the best mid-quarter in the whole competition. You've got Tori Peters, who was on the podium at Diamond League level in athletics, just absolutely outstanding. You've got Leon Samuels and Shearing, who did things that have never, ever been done before by any shearer in terms of the winning sequence that he had. You've got Tom Sexton, who won a bronze medal at the World Track Champs. and you've got Corbin Strong, who's competing in stages on the Tour de France.
Yeah. So who are you going to leave out of that lot?
And these are Southlanders. It gives you goosebumps when you think about it.
I'm just glad they let us name 8 finalists, because it was tough to come up with 8.
Yeah.
Really, there's a quality of people that actually missed out on those finalists. Probably highlights even. It's impressive.
Genuinely, there were nominations that, without telling people how the sausage gets made, there were nominations who would win categories maybe in other years and definitely in other regions around the country. We are blessed.
And they didn't make the finals.
And they didn't make the finals.
So the junior sports person is always a horrendous one to actually, as well too, right, to judge. And as you say, you've got another quality 8 finalists that have been announced. So we well know the achievements of Cormac Buchanan from a motorsport point of view, the OG on the Raw in terms of our guests. And take us through the other ones, mate. Like Alex Crosby as well, from a motorsport point of view.
Yeah, probably one of the. A little bit of. He's actually my cousin's boy, so I'm a little bit biased, but probably one of the most exciting young motorsport drivers in the country. You've got Benji Colhane, who not only captained New Zealand in hockey at under 21 level, but then stepped up and has played, I think, something like a dozen caps for the Black Sticks at senior men's level already. You've got Marshall Irwood, who's the national under 23 road champion. You've got Kaseki Fafita, who obviously, somehow was the only Southland boys player to go through to get selected for New Zealand secondary schools last year. Now, that team is so hard to crack when you think about the competition required to make that team, so that's just an outstanding effort. Caitlin Kelly was a bronze medalist, the only medal that New Zealand won at the Junior World Track Cycling Champs last year. You've got Finn Mitchell, who actually is was in a crutching gang with his old man many years ago, but he was. I think there's only been.
That's the lead. Yeah, that's the lead in his bio. Yeah.
There's only been 5 people, I believe, that have ever finished the Revenant, which is a truly horrendous event up at Welcome Rock, and he was one of those, and also one of the leaders in that Fair Youth team who have just done some exceptional things around the globe. And Jack Taylor, of course, who we've had in this very studio on a sister podcast as well, who's a great kid and has gone through very quickly from Southland Boys High School to Highlanders and New Zealand under 20s, and obviously he's making every stride a winner with the Highlanders now too.
Man, that's tough, isn't it? So, naturally, this is what you do. You go through the list and then you go, okay, who's going to get that? Oh, it's good stuff. The team of the year, there's the Fair Youth Adventure Races, as you talk about. Now, it's an amazing story, these guys. Not only just what the level of events they're running, they go over to what amounts to the World Championships. And this is senior, elite level, open level as well too. And where did they actually end up finishing?
I believe out of 107 teams, and this is senior teams, they were the youngest team to ever attend this event, and they finished, I think, ninth overall, which is just amazing. The Gore Interclub Bowls, who that's the first time, I believe, a Southland team's gone through and won that interclub competition. You've got the Southern lads, who are the winners from last year. They absolutely cleaned up in the 3-person competition at Coast to Coast. They went back.
Went faster too, didn't they?
Faster. Yeah. Just missed out on being the first ones in the whole competition to cross the line. They missed out to a 2-person team there at Sumner Beach. But again, and for a Masters team, have absolutely blown it out of the water in that competition. And then, of course, there's the Boys High team in the top 4, who probably need no introduction.
Yes, that's right. So there you go. That's team of the year, and again, high quality stuff. Coach of the year, Sean Cantwell for athletics. Jason Dermody for rugby as the Boys High First 15. Julian Einerson, who is doing such a good job with Marshall Irwood and others from a cycling point of view. And the evergreen Lance Smith. It's another year and another nomination for a Southland Sports Award for athletics. Legend, you could say, Lance Smith too, right?
Yeah, a lot of medals at national level, and still helping to coach players who are getting themselves into New Zealand teams, and also pushing the getting those US scholarships, which are pretty outstanding as well.
official of the year, and I have a feeling, are these all repeat finalists? They from over the years. I think they mightn't be their first time. But Erin Creglington, Cassie Watt might be a new addition, but certainly from a rugby refereeing point of view, no stranger to the headlines. Pete Pascoe's back for cricket. Nicky McNaught, who's certainly been nominated before for squash, and Erin, as I say, from a cycling point of view. So it does give you an idea about that it's not just actually on the playing field that Southlanders are making a massive contribution.
Yeah, and a little bit back to the future where we've gone back and actually, if you remember in the last few years, we've had an official and an administrator category, and the decision was made just to, we'll pull those two categories back into one. Just so happens that this year they all are probably more in that official sort of capacity, but when I look at all four of those names, it's really clear that they go above and beyond, and it's not just about what they do on the court or on the field. They're actually having a role in building the sport up and building up the administrators and the officials behind them as well, so having a massive impact on their sport.
So another 5 evergreen athletes in the Masters Achievement of the Year, and all 5 of them have had big years. Dwight Grieve for athletics, Greg Hokamu for touch, Gail Kirkman athletics, Julie O'Connell for bowls, and Ruth Whelan from a cycling point of view.
Yeah, and there's Julie O'Connell. There's a world champion in the para bowls pairs. There you've got Ruth Whelan, I think was a third at the Masters, which is UCI track event. Got Gail Kirkman, who's just an absolute inspiration in that 70 plus athletics, doing like hurdles and long jump and high jump and that sort of thing. If we're doing that when we're 70 plus, then we've done something well. Greg Hokamu, let's not be too critical of the fact he won a national title with Auckland. He didn't have a choice. There was no Southland team. He's gone and done the business. Also been selected for New Zealand at Masters level, heading away later in the year. And you mentioned Dwight Grieve, who's a previous winner of this category.
And Community Trust South Community Impact Award. This is something that's appeared for the last couple of years, right? And is very quickly become a really important part of the evening.
Some absolutely fantastic stories. I'll get Sav helped us out with the judging for this one as well, from an independent sort of community point of view, and just some good yarns, eh?
Yeah, really good. And these are people and organisations that have, I guess, probably strayed from the norm of their sports, would be fair to say, to have an impact on the community and in a really inclusive way. And yeah, they're all really great stories behind them.
Good stuff. So now, of course, we wait until June 7 to be able to make the announcements, right? Plus, as you mentioned, BDO Services to Sport Awards will be announced on the evening as well. So, great work in terms of pulling that together. And, I think it's as good a field, I think, strong in terms of quality across the board that we've probably seen in recent years.
I think we nominated Wendy Frew to take any complaints as the spokesman, because it was a challenging process.
I'll tell you another thing. Actually, we're taking the opportunity. Hannah Pascoe, who's had an outstanding sporting career. This is a woman who she completely lost her sight in her mid-20s, but that was almost the spur for her to go on. And then she's done something like 16 marathons, including the New York Marathon. She has competed for New Zealand as a track cyclist. She's been in multiple events, including the Westpac Chopper ride in recent years as well. So we're taking that opportunity to really catch up with her and some of the people who have been, pivotal to her career as well. So we're really looking forward to celebrating her journey during the night, and tickets have just gone on sale actually, so people can head along to the website, and even if they perhaps don't have a direct connection to any of the finalists, it's going to be I'm sure Nick, you'll do a good job of you and Angie will do a good job of getting a good yarn out of Hannah and the tribe there, so looking forward to it.
Look, it's always a great night. I think it's the wonderful thing, and yeah, absolutely, we I think you couldn't get a better showcase for sport generally, as a sector, and the impact that it does have, and the stories in behind it. I think that a night like this, so I definitely encourage those that haven't been before. You are going to leave there feeling pretty inspired about what's the work that's going in and the achievements that are being done out of this little place we call Southland. So, looking forward to that, and that'll be something. There's plenty of good podcast fodder in there too. Lots of good guests between now and then, I'd imagine, which we'll certainly look forward to. Speaking of good guests, we've got a real good one for you now. Man, he's got some life journey to talk us through, and he's got the small matter of trying to go back-to-back with his Pirates Old Boys team in the Galbraith Shield in a few months' time as well. Welcome, Dayna Cunningham.
Is there a key to these things?
No, right there, mate. And don't even forget about it.
Okay. Forget that it's there.
I'm recording this bit too, so this will be how we'll start. He thinks we're joking. So the voice you can hear there was preparation with Dayna Cunningham, who's in the Raw. Mate, welcome. Good to have you in here. You're just talking to the microphone. That's how it works.
Yes, great. Thanks for having me.
Mate, we've got a whole heap to talk through. We're going to take a bit of a journey through a really cool life story. We'll talk a bit of club footy as well, no doubt. But we're going to start because you were one of the 100 odd, I know you emphasise the odd bit, that decided to ride, 200 plus Ks from Frankton to Queenstown for the Westpac Chopper appeal. Awesome effort. Tell us about the day.
Pretty cool experience, to be fair. A long day, longer than I thought. Started pretty early. I think the alarms went off about 4:15 for breakfast, and then we biked down to Frankton from the hotel, and then split into 3 groups and hit the road officially just before 6. And we got in just before 6 on Friday night. So,
Tell me, did you freak out a little bit? The little pinch that you do going up to Frankton and you
to the start line,
and you go, oh, hang on. Where are my legs?
The first nervous bit was coming down the hill from the Sherwood because it was frosty. So the last thing I want to do is bin it before we start.
Yeah.
And then, coming up the hill to the branch was pretty tough. I was like, it wasn't. Yeah, definitely.
Nothing like having your soul sucked from your body before you get to the start line. Question: have you ever been colder in your life?
No.
Yeah.
Nah, so cold. Yeah, and it just couldn't get warm.
No.
Yeah, it just couldn't get warm. And it was a really weird feeling, thinking I'm exercising here, but I'm getting colder. Yeah, and just couldn't get warm. And I don't think I felt my feet till sort of 1 o'clock in the afternoon. No, but that's something pretty small compared to.
Is there a mental challenge to push yourself through that?
Yeah, it's interesting. You could have got to ride the wave. You actually learn quite a bit about yourself as a person during the day. And like I said, I ended up on the front of the group from Dipton School to Lime Hills out the back road, and I got myself in a bit of a mental hole there. I was struggling, and but we managed to get through it. I think Richie and that come past and sat on the front, and he looked like he was just cruising. And then we had a break for lunch, and then after lunch seemed to come right. But you do learn. There's a lot of self-talking going on through the day.
How did Richie and Gemma and Nathan Cohen and Paddy Gower, how did those guys go?
Yeah, they're really good. I mean, it seems like Richie's made for a bike. Like he got on the front, leading us into Browns as well, and I think the pace picked up from sort of 27k to 35k pretty quick. And a couple of people had to tell him to slow down because the bunch was getting longer and longer. But
I think we talked about this with Reece. It's a hard conversation to have the former All Black captain to sort of
do that to the goat.
Get him to pull his horns in a little.
And then Gemma, somewhere between Ethel and Five Rivers, her back axle popped on her wheel. Ooh. Didn't come right out, but they stopped and fixed it. And I mean, most of us would have got in the van and got a ride, but they caught the peloton after about 6 or 7 minutes getting it fixed. And Gemma said Richie just went all Tour de France, and she sat on the back wheel, and they caught us pretty quick. So they're machines.
How did you get tricked into doing this, or was this of your own volition?
Well, it turned out I originally wasn't going to do it, and like I said, I did Queenstown half last year for the first time, and then I kind of needed something to keep me ticking over. And my partner Erin, she did it last year, and she's pretty committed when she decides to do something. So I kind of knew what she'd be up to most weekends after New Year's. So I thought, I'll go and get myself a road bike and just do some training. And with no intentions of doing the ride, but then it sort of evolved to a point where I've done the training, and people were saying, "You're going to do the ride?" And I was like, "Oh, no, you should do it." So it just turned out that we ended up doing it. So
good on you.
So what was the training regime like, and has it hooked you?
It's funny, they talk about a runner's high. I think a biker's high is similar. And it's not the biking. I do enjoy the biking. But said to a few people, it's more you finish a ride, you get home, have something to eat, have a shower, and then it's the feeling afterwards that's the addictive bit. Like it's you feel like you've done something, body feels good, and then I want to feel that again. So yeah, so we're regularly doing weekend rides Saturdays and Sundays, and then trying to get a ride in through the week, midweek if we could. So
Between the half marathon and the chopper appeal ride, which was the most challenging for differing reasons, I'd imagine?
yeah, it's the biking things. Like there's no way I could go and run 20k 2 days in a row, but you can bike 100k one day and 60 the next. And I guess it's different fitness, but yeah. So I mean, I really enjoy.
Who were you talking to when you said we could do that? Which one of us?
yeah. So it's I think for biking's good in that respect. It's a lot easier on the body.
Yeah.
But again, you committing sort of 4 hours on a Saturday to do a decent ride versus you probably get the same feeling going for half an hour run, but your body's a bit sore after a run. So yeah.
Yeah, it is time in the saddle, isn't it? So but in terms of the overall day, it's quite something else, right? And it's also the community support. And I know the school visits, they turned out in big numbers by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they did. Like every school, dipped in Lime Hills, Browns, Hedgehope, Woodlands, Remu, they were all packed. And I think that's what the celebrities, they get a good kick out of. Richie and they get a good kick out of seeing the kids in rural schools. And but yeah, like you don't actually have to go far to know someone directly or know someone who knows someone who's used the chopper. So to sort of contribute to that was pretty cool. So and where we live in the world down here in the deep south, everyone's always pretty receptive to support that sort of stuff. And we get lots of toots. There's farmers had tractors on the side of the road with signs hanging from loaders and people driving past us with Westpac jerseys stapled to bits of plywood with support. And so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is something else, isn't it? I mean, we had a chat obviously with Reese a couple of weeks ago about it leading in, and it has taken on something almost bigger than itself over the years, hasn't it? Like if you look at something that the people that they attract is one thing. The sheer number of no disrespect, Dayna, but average Joes that are prepared to get in there and have a crack at it as well too. It is something quite unique.
Yeah, and like there's guys that have been doing it since the inception.
That's right.
And guys like Reese and that riding 10 years to people like myself have only been on a bike for a few months. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think like Cycling Southland would love to have 100 guys rocking up on
just
a Saturday.
Turning up and I'll ride 240, no problem.
So to have people willingly put their hands up for this thing is outstanding, really.
Yeah, and we'll get a bit more into your life story too, mate. But from a pure physical fitness point of view, I mean, what's that done to you over the last sort of 4 months? Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, it's when you use heart rate monitors and watches and stuff, and like from starting to now, I used to average probably 150 beats a minute for a ride. Now that's down into the 120s. So,
Zone 2 training.
Yep.
Isn't that what they say?
Something like
Did that sound like I knew what I was talking about?
It's possibly one of the nerdiest sports you can get
really
involved in, isn't it? Like
it was funny. One of the guys on Friday night after we finished the race, and we all meet up at the Kelvin for a couple of drinks, and his computer or his watch auto-saved halfway, and like it just sent him into chaos in his mind. He's like, this can't happen to me.
Oh, so he didn't get the second half.
No, so he had to start a new thing halfway. In his mind, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And he was about an hour after everyone at the Kelvin because he was on Google trying to work out how
you could put them together.
How do you merge two events to one so it looks like I've actually probably done it?
Yeah, gotcha.
So but yeah, from a physical.
So you're saying you've become a complete Strava nerd, have you? Is this?
No, it's good to.
So this is the mapping app for those that don't know. It maps heart rate, pace, the route itself, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say a nerd, but you do look at your speeds. It's when you go downhill, you want to try and crack up a good speed. So what's my top speed, and then what was my highest heart rate? Did I nearly cark it today or not?
Okay, so what were those two numbers on the ride out of interest?
Actually, I think we hit nearly 50k in the dark coming down a piece of this Devils, which was. I think if it was daylight, you're a little bit more nervous, but because you couldn't see too much.
It makes sense.
I'm sure if that does make sense.
And then because the Devils in the dark going up the hills didn't seem too bad because I guess you couldn't see anything other than the wheel in front of you on the light. So And then I think I hit 60 odd K coming down the Jollies towards Five Rivers,
Yeah.
which on 25 mils of rubber.
Yeah, you don't want to think about it too much.
No, like
Yeah, because you want to take some of the juice out of that next week climb, don't you? So you're not hitting the brakes.
And I've worked out momentum's quite good on a bike.
Yeah.
Like, if you get it wrong coming through the hills, it's a tough climb. But if you can get up the next rise without too much trouble, it makes it easier. But yeah.
And so then you had to back up on the weekend on the sidelines, of course, for Pirates Old Boys, huh?
Yeah. So I was surprisingly feeling okay.
Got
on
out of
Saturday
bed
morning.
okay?
Yeah, actually was anticipating stepping onto the floor out of bed, falling over, but actually felt all right. But even today I'm still pretty gassed energy-wise, tired, but yeah, physically feel all right. So, yeah, that was good. And then obviously Saturday footy, enjoy Saturdays. So, yeah.
Well, especially when you give Woodlands a tickle up like you did.
When you get a win.
Yeah, so talk us through that on the weekend. That's good bounce back from the boys, obviously, after what happened the week previous against Barbars.
Yeah, it was like, Barbars are a good side, and the way that game worked out, they were able to play to their strengths in that second half, and it's challenged us, but I didn't think a loss at this stage of the comp was going to be bad for us. No disrespect to the Marist and the Blues, they're not as strong as they have been. So, and you look at Barbars and Woodies, that they've been playing each other with Star, kind of tested. So that was it was always going to be a benchmark for us where we're at, and 2 points. I know we gave away a bit of a lead at half time, but to bounce back on Saturday was pretty pleasing.
What's been the big difference? Obviously, you were assistant coach last year with Pirates Old Boys when they won the comp. You've stepped into that head coaching role. Big difference between the two? Yeah,
it is a big difference. You're kind of you're almost in the helicopter looking down on things as the head coach versus being in the nitty-gritty with the set-piece stuff or scrum coach, but kind of delving in a bit of both. But, it's challenging because you're trying to set the tone of the whole environment basically as a head coach, and we've talked about as a group and as a club, we've won it once, but it's sort of doesn't mean too much. That was last year. We're not guaranteed to win it again this year, but how do we become like a Woodlands and become one of the top club teams over a long period of time? So, and then different cultures within the playing group. We've got some Fijian boys, with Kiwis, Island boys. A lot of those Pacific boys are naturally pretty quiet people, so how do you connect everyone together? And we're playing with a few themes and bits and pieces as a group, and but the challenge is just how do we get better all the time.
You've got a unique challenge, I guess, rather than trying to scratch a side together for a Saturday. You've got you've got some resources there, but I guess that there's a double-edged sword there in terms of keeping people happy and keeping people feeling like they, I guess, they're happy with their lot and in terms of your environment.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's different. You think back to when we were playing, and you were happy, or you were happy to play as much as needed or not. Now I think society's different, and the younger generation, everything's at their fingertips, so they expect everything to happen pretty quick, and so it is challenging. And so how do we create an environment that's bigger than the individual, and we're all on the same path towards an end goal, but within that there's tricky conversations, and people do get frustrated, and sometimes it is hard for people to take that step back and look down on it. But it's a good challenge to have, rather than the opposite.
What about for you personally, coaching wise? Have you got some, I guess, aspirations or where you want to get with coaching, or see where you can get to?
I want to be a full-time coach one day. I've got aspirations. I'd love to coach Stags higher than that if possible, but you just got to be patient and hopefully put yourself in a position that when that opportunity arises, you're able to grab it, and maybe it won't eventuate, but try and do all the things you can personally that if it does come along, or the opportunity does come along, you're ready to grab it.
Because I guess there's been a real pathway from Super Rugby player to coach, and obviously you played at provincial level with the Stags, but do you see that the pathways, well, not just there, but that it is actually fostered from players or coaches that haven't come through that Super Rugby system?
Yeah, it's I guess the guys coming out of Super Rugby, they understand the high performance system. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be great coaches. I mean, generally, good rugby players, and people from those environments are generally good people too, so they do understand people. But I think that's a real key thing is, for me, is while I don't have high performance knowledge that a professional player does, you get a bit of life experience and you bring those different things around understanding people and being self-employed and employ staff, and so I think that stuff adds benefit. But I think as a coach though, those opportunities are almost I view it as it's an opinion or it's a selection thing at the time, and just because you may not get there doesn't mean you're a bad coach, or it's just whether you fit that opportunity at the time. Or but that is a real challenge for people like me who are coaching grassroots to try and get to high performance versus someone coming at us a high performance environment. That's definitely a challenge, but I guess that's just the way it is.
Are there courses that you can, is there professional development available that you can go and put your hand up for that sort of thing?
Yeah, we've been lucky. Rugby Southland seem to have a pretty good focus now on developing coaches. So there's a couple of us doing coaching card stuff through the academy, and then you can do New Zealand Rugby or World Rugby tickets, so level 1, 2 and 3, which I've done all those, and a coach educators course as well, so we're allowed to sign off other community coaches. But I think some of that you've almost got to drive it yourself as well. You can't always have the handout expecting support. You've got to go and find some of that yourself. So always looking to connect with friends of mine. Got a mate of mine who's coaching Crusaders. Just always messaging guys like that, and
Rob Penny.
Not Rob Penny,
no, okay.
One of the other boys, but they're in a bit of a dark space at the moment.
He wasn't that happy after
Rob
the game,
Penny in the box after that
I
was
know.
they just left the camera on him. I was starting to feel a bit uncomfortable. Yeah.
So I got a thought, can't even say the word, forming in my head. So this will be potentially another rambling question from me. But
You're going to do Westpac next year?
No, we're not talking about that at all. But what we are, from a coaching point of view now in this professional environment, you talk about the generational thing as well too. I mean, tell me that little bit of a balance, because it's obviously people management versus technical skills. You have to do both of those things, but how you manage those in a professional or semi-professional environment, even at a grassroots level where that's where players want to go. I mean, how cognizant are you of that? Because you're almost in an employee sort of situation in terms of managing, right? And managing kind of expectations that we've talked about.
Yeah, it's...
there was a question in there somewhere, was there? I don't know. But you understand the theme was sort of,
yeah, it's
unpacking a bit here.
You are managing people, like I say, trying to create an environment where, while we're club footy players, you've got different levels of people within your playing group. So there's guys that are going to be playing, definitely be Super Rugby players in our group now that are not currently Super Rugby but will be. You've got young guys coming through like the JJ Fishers and Sean Kemptons, and then you've got guys that through their career, the Craig Smiths, guys like GD and that have got a bit of time left, but they're through that. And then you've got other guys who turn up to play footy with their mates, and so
that's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. And so you do have to cater for all of those people, and it's about challenging and setting the guys up that, like the young fellas like the Kais and that, how do we set them up so that when they do get to the next level, it's not such a big jump, and you have to accept that the other people or some of the people that are turning up just to play footy and have a beer, that they might not get all of it, but you wrap them up with a bit of support around that stuff, but you're also setting the other guys up to succeed as well. So it is a bit of a balancing act.
So is there greater expectation on you to deliver a good coaching experience as well too, in the current rugby environment than maybe there was back in the day when you were coming up through the ranks?
That's I reckon that's a real key thing, like not even just at premier level at clubs, even in the younger grades at schools. I think you see in the numbers a lot of players drop off after school or even in their last couple of years at school, and I think some of that's around the experience that they have, and I think if we can create an experience at the back end of their school years and maybe their first year or two out of school at club level, I think if you can create a good experience there, they're likely to stay playing the game. But if it's and whether that's an experience of having lots of fun and they enjoy it, or an experience that they love it because they know they're getting well coached
And developing
as players. Yep. There's a balance in that, but I think that's a key to keeping people playing rugby. Yep.
I mean, in some part, the grassroots coach is more challenging than probably a professional coach, in terms of, if you're a professional coach, you know you're turning up with these players and we're gonna put this training together and it's gonna play out like this. Where I'd imagine on occasions you turn up on a Tuesday night and you've got all the plans and some guy's just been called away for work or whatever. Those are challenges professional rugby coaches don't have.
Yeah, it's different. Like, I think the professional coaches, they get to pick how they're going to play, and they pick players to suit that, rather than we kind of got to play to the playing group we've got. And those challenges are real. Like, even on the van going up to the bot rod on Thursday, there's our team had changed 2 or 3 times during Thursday afternoon because someone was on a waiting list for getting an operation, and they got called and said, yep, you're in tomorrow. And then they got called back saying, no, you're not. And within that time, we'd talked as coaches and said, okay, well, right, you're not going to play then, so you're in. And then that changed again, so no, actually you're not playing and you're in. But yeah, it's just part of it. Yeah.
I talked to David Henderson about this recently, because obviously between him and Simon Culhane, they'd had some success at club level. They stepped up to Southland B, had some success there. Then the Stags job came up. They had no idea that they were in the running. They thought, we'll throw our names in the hat. If nothing else, it'll give us some experience in terms of the interview process. And then they bloody got it. And they're like, oh, what do we do now? But obviously, there's that thing where you just, I guess, you draw on what you've done so far, and they ended up presiding over, the most successful sort of Stags tenure in 50 years. So I wonder if we do overcomplicate these things from time to time.
Yeah, and like that experience thing you talk around, like I heard or read a thing a while ago that, players don't care how much you know till they know how much you care, and I think that's quite a good thing, and it's relevant that, because you've got not just rugby players, but people, right? So, you've got people who've got stuff going on outside of rugby, but if you can understand that as a whole, and there might be something that they're off playing, they might not play so well one week, but there could be something else going on at home or at work, and I think that's important to understand, and hopefully, and I don't think we're quite there yet, and it might take a few years, but if we get an environment, focus for PAB, if we get an environment that the whole player can turn up, not just the rugby player, we'll be successful as a group, and looking long term, how do we want the club to look like or feel like when we walk into it in 10 years' time when we might not be involved? We can help influence that now.
So how are you feeling about the back half of the season and the chances here? Because, what we have seen over recent weeks is that that top 4, again, no discredit to Marist particularly and Blues, but for that top 4, there is and Star seem to be the comer, right? If you look at what they did particularly on the weekend. So tell us a little bit about what your level of confidence is around that.
I think it's just a week-to-week thing. Star's going to be a real challenge for us this week. I totally believe we're good enough to beat them, but they're a different side to other teams, and you got guys like the Samisis and the Geordie Stewarts, and that in that team are pretty combative, and so it'll be a different game to what Woodlands was. But yeah, it's interesting. So we played Barbars, Woodlands, Star, 3 in a row on the back of playing Blues and Marist twice, and then we sort of go back through Marist, Blues, Barbars, and then Woodies and Star again. So I think there might be a couple of off weeks for us, but I think at the end of the day it's going to come down to 2 games, and that'll be the semi and the final. And if you're good enough to win the semi, and hopefully you've got enough resources to back it up, then so I'm not getting too carried away about where we finish. Again though, like, who do you want to play in a semi? I guess it doesn't matter. Like,
Flip a coin probably at the moment.
That's what I think.
Because I think
maybe not the Barbars at the showgrounds.
No, I don't think we'd want to go to the showgrounds. But yeah, like, the Barbars, Stars and Woodies, they're all very, very, very good teams that offer different challenges depending on what the ground conditions are like and the weather on the day as well. So yeah, I think we've just got to try and tick the right boxes every week, and what'll happen will happen.
How much of a challenge is it to get the microphone out of Andrew Morton's hands on a Saturday night in the club? Or do you sometimes you just have to kick the speaker out of the wall or something?
I think there's someone out the back ready to pull the plug just in case. But no, Mort's has been awesome for our club. Like, obviously he was heavily involved in the cycling stuff for the he was one of the guys that set up the ride, but the chopper ride. But he's doing a lot of good work in the background with our social media, and right. He's there every Tuesday, every Thursday if he can be. And Saturday's videoing, even our pre-season stuff. He's taking videos of us training, and you start looking at 3,000 hits on these videos. It's awesome for the club because that's what people look at, right? They look at social media. They're always on Facebook or Instagram, and I think that's part of the reason our club's been successful is on the back of that. Yeah, no, he's been awesome, but.
So do you feel bad about that now?
What's that, mate?
Do you feel bad about?
No,
no, not at all.
Comes from a place of love.
yeah.
Morts knows that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Right, well, let's segue into your story, mate, because this is, this has been well done. Sav, you might want to take the lead on this because there's this story that you did, and you got this man to open up, and we'll maybe try and do the same here in terms of the life journey that he's been on for an article that you wrote in the Tribune last year.
Yeah, well, me and Dayna had been talking about it for a few months, wasn't it? Obviously, Dayna's journey with the weight loss surgery, and I'm quite rightly initially probably a little hesitant, but I think what's come from that yarn has been pretty positive around your journey, and I understand you've had a fair bit of good feedback from or choosing to open up around some of that. So I talk about, I guess, from start how that come about.
Yeah, well, he obviously approached me. It was around Galbraith Shield final time last year, I never really did it to sort of talk about it, to be fair, and I'm not really one that enjoys standing up there and talking about things, but
which always makes for a good podcast.
yeah. But it was I didn't want it. The reason I guess not being reserved at the start was more around I guess the perception. Didn't want it to look like, hey, it's look what I've done, hey, look at me. It's because it definitely wasn't. But the more I thought about it, and you talked to me a few times, and there's more around, actually there will be people out there that are struggling, and that's life. And if I can help one person by if we wrote the article in the right way, that if that helps one person make a change for the positive, then it's probably worth doing. So I guess that's how it eventuated, and I thought you did a great job, and yeah, it's interesting, the whole process for me around deciding to get surgery. You go through different emotions. Initially, that's the hard bit, right? Because what are people going to say? You cheated, you took the easy route, you got surgery. You go through all of those different thoughts, but at the end of the day, you just got to look after number one, and the reasons I got it were my reasons. And if people agree or disagree, I guess you can't control that. You just got to control the controllables. And but for me personally, hands down, the best thing I've ever done. Yeah.
So what sort of flicked the switch, I guess, in terms of making that decision? What was really under there for you?
Well, the underlying thing for me to get the surgery was I was extremely unhealthy for a young man. I was on blood pressure medication at 40. I was getting sleep apnea, and then obviously, Blee Vining, good mate of mine, died of cancer. He got dealt a pretty rough hand as a young man, and so I had another mate of mine die of motor neuron disease at 37. So they didn't get a choice, and basically by doing nothing, I was choosing to roll the dice really, and probably potentially end up in the same fate, and I didn't want to do that. Young kids, wanted to be around for them, and so that was the catalyst. And then it was just working out, taking the steps, and I'd talked to a few people, and I think you start the ball rolling and things sort of almost fall into place. So I did a bit of research, and I didn't want to get it done locally because for some of those earlier reasons, and Googled a weight loss surgery in Christchurch and read about it, and they had videos of the surgeons, and watched videos multiple times, rung them, and they said, oh, we've got this appointment available. It was the 17th of November, so I was like, yep, sweet, fly up, talk to them, and just so happened he said, well, we've got an appointment available on the 18th of December. And I was like, right, things are getting real. And spoke to Erin, and at that time, that date was, she was moving house, and that was moving day.
Of course.
Yeah. And she was awesome. She's like, look, if it's something you really want to do. I said, yeah, I do. I've got to do it for me. And so, yep, sweet, we're in. And so 1 month later, I had surgery.
I think you told everyone you're getting a hernia operation, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah. And that was around just, I guess, the perception of what people might think around, you cheated, you took the easy option. And at the time, it's not the easy option, it's a big choice to make.
Mate,
you know?
I'd say.
In hindsight, getting surgery, it's not easy, but it is, it's just part of the journey, and it is almost the easy bit, because you go to sleep, you wake up and you've had surgery, you know, and all of a sudden the weight starts falling off you. But for me, I needed to do a bit of extra work around nutrition, understanding why I had the habits I had around food. So I talked to an awesome nutritionist, Kendall. Well, she's a dietitian actually, and done a bit of work in that space, and then a psychologist, just trying to understand why. Why do I wake up in the middle of the night and feel like I need to eat? You know, why do I crave these certain foods at different times of the day? And when you understand that, then you're on a good path to...
So how long did that take, though? I mean, it's interesting because we all have our own battles, I guess, as well, too. You know, battles is probably going over the top, but, you know, to try and get our heads around why we make choices that we do, whether it's food or elsewise, otherwise, to be fair. So what was it that actually connected the dots, and how long did that process kind of take?
It took a few months. But
and you need help for that sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
Mostly?
Yeah. And I think it's having the freedom in your mind to know, or awareness to know that I need to make changes. And for me, it was a constant battle. Most people know that calories in versus calories out, you're either going to lose weight or you're going to not. You know, 2 + 2 = 4, kind of. We're not silly people, right? But for me, it was just like, the harder I tried, the worse it got. And so I was like, so you're always in a constant battle. So it was more around, right, I need help because I'm not fixing things myself. And then, yeah, I guess just making sure you find the right people and connecting with the people you're talking to. You know, I think if I didn't get on with Kendall, or I felt like we didn't fit, because they're kind of a teammate, right? So if we didn't fit, then probably would have looked for somewhere else. But, you know, they did a great job.
I guess what you're asking, Nick, too, is like, we're talking about looking under the hood, and it's and it's tough. It's something that I don't know if it's a Southland blokes in New Zealand. It's a New Zealand thing. It's a bloke thing too, isn't it? Like looking under the hood.
Well, they're tough questions to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and even tougher to answer, right? You know, especially when the answers aren't exactly the way, you know, what we would want, and we analyse a little bit about what they say about us as well too. And you're starting to go into a place that most of us blokes, particularly like you say, don't want to go.
Yeah, it is challenging. And like, from my background, I'm a dairy farmer. You know, traditionally farmers, pretty hard-nosed type people. You know, nothing's ever a problem. And farming life is stressful. It's an industry where you're head down, bum up a lot of the time. And I think generally farmers don't really look after themselves because they're so busy all the time, and you get up early in the morning, you go and work all day, and you come home and you have tea at night, you know. And that was kind of a little bit of a place where I was at. It wasn't like I was sitting down on the couch all day eating food. It was, organisation was poor around food, not eating at all until later in the day, and then eating basically a day's worth of food from 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon through to bedtime at night. So yeah, so that was one of the driving things to do the articles around, was, you know, like, if it's helping people, farmers in particular as well, who, it's not an easy industry to work in. You know, a lot of people like that struggle as well. So,
have you had many people reach out since that article around their own battles, I suppose?
Yeah, I've spoken to probably half a dozen people who have been awesome in turn, and 3 or 4 of them I've never met, and there was messages on Messenger saying, hey, read the article, relate to it so well, thinking about getting surgery, do you mind if I give you a ring? And then just talking to them and not, it's never been a thing to say that, yeah, you should go and do it. Just speaking from my own experience, and it was the best thing I'd ever done for me. But these are the things you're going to need to be aware of. And but I think from all of those people I've spoken to, there's a real connectual similarity around how you're feeling in public. It's jovial on the outside, not really that happy on the inside about how you look, or because you can't go to the shop and put a top on, and well, I couldn't. You go into the big boy section at Farmers. I hated shopping because what was the point? Because there wasn't going to be anything on the shelf that fitted me. So there's a connection around how people are feeling in that space, and I think most of those people have decided to go on and get surgery, which is awesome for them, and keep in contact. And so again, it's an opportunity to meet different people, and so I think it's been a real good thing.
But it obviously isn't the easy fix that you might think some people think, because people just can't go back to their old habits, or else it can reverse itself.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, and people say, people do put on weight after surgery, and there is people that do, and I think that's probably the missing piece for those people. And that's speculation, but maybe that's the piece that they've just missed on is surgery, because it's euphoric. Like, it's an awesome feeling being out, losing. I lost 74 kilos. Like, wow. It's an awesome feeling, but if you just ride that wave and forget about the other stuff, then your old habits do come back in. And talking to the surgeons, they don't know why, but it's that second year after surgery where your brain kind of works out, oh, you've tricked me here, and your old habits start coming back. So I think that's where maybe people miss that piece, is they're on such a cool ride because they've lost heaps of weight, but without even knowing, those old habits sneak back in, and snacking happens, and chocolate bar here and there 2 or 3 times a day over a period of time ends up putting weight back on. So that's where I think people put the weight back on, is just not quite getting that other piece right. But
it must be a pretty amazing feeling, though, to have those people reach out and to be able to give them some good, honest insight, and hopefully send them on a good path.
Yeah, I mean, if you can positively impact someone, and I guess that's the coaching piece for me, is around how do you positively impact people, and so it's just a different avenue of doing something that I really enjoy, but understanding that it might not work for them, but it's just speaking from my experience. But it is cool to see that you've influenced or impacted someone in a positive way. Yep, definitely.
The analogy I'm thinking of here was the old laser eye surgery, because all the surgery does is take you up to 20/20 vision. So if your eyes are still degenerating there, it's no good, because you just degenerate from there. Unless you can change your habits and make those lifestyle choices, you're taken up to a position, I guess, and then it's up to you from there, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, the little things that pop up. I remember, a year ago, just sort of laughing, doing my shoes up, and we were heading out for lunch, and Erin was like, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "Don't worry, you're not going to get it." "Oh, what are you laughing at?" I said, "I'm laughing at it because I'm not holding my breath doing my shoes up, because I didn't have to stop breathing to bend over to do my shoelaces up, like just little things like that, where you get on a plane or a bus and you don't feel like the person beside you feels like you're trying to sit on their knee because you're shoulder width across their chest, like you just kind of feel normal."
You must have this is the amazing thing. The numbers are incredible, like in terms of the actual weight loss. The photos naturally are incredible. That was in Sarah's article as well too. So what do you think about when you reflect on the before and after, around that and kind of that whole journey in terms of you and the impact that it's had? You delved into that too much, or is it just the way it is?
You look back on them sometimes, and it's more around, far out, how did you get to that point? But I guess had to get to that point to get to this point, if that makes sense. But It's a bit of a reference point because there's still people that haven't seen me for a while. They don't recognise me.
Quite a change, to be fair.
Yeah. I don't look back too much, but it is it is a reference point.
Yep.
Because deep down, there's always a fear you don't want to go back there. So I guess that's a good backstop to.
Yeah, wow.
Well, that's what. No, I don't want to look like that again.
Because we're talking about, you mentioned holding your breath to tie your shoelaces up to rolling into Essex Street here.
240 kilometres later, yeah.
You couldn't get to things that further at either end of the spectrum, really, could you?
No, and I guess, for me, underneath all of that big person was a desire to want to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just couldn't. Physically couldn't, and mentally couldn't either, because I was at a point where I hated being in public, even in the rugby club, like I said in the article, people see a smiley face and jovial person, but, underneath all of that was I didn't want to be in public because, fear of being judged on how you looked and, going to, if I was sitting in here, the old me, I'd be dripping with sweat, and just those things. So, underneath all of that was a person who was, because active playing rugby for a long years, and I wanted to be able to do that stuff, but I just couldn't. But now, you feel free because you can.
What happens? Obviously you're a scrum coach, and previously you just chuck yourself in if you're one short to a scrum to hold up a scrum. What happens? What happens now? At 98 kgs or whatever.
You become creative. And you're right, a few years ago, if we were short of a proper training, I'd jump in and, not now. But, you can become creative and create drills that don't need you in it. But
Mind you did make the point, I think, that from a rugby coaching point of view, you can now, rather than actually having to blow the whistle and the players come to you, because that was easier when you were in the state you were. Now, you're trotting around the training ground in there, and it is a completely different view from a coaching perspective too.
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah, absolutely. And again, whether it's perception, but being able to run around with the boys, you feel part of it. You're not giving advice on how to be active, essentially, and kind of looking like, well, come on, mate. So it's been a big positive for me in that respect, because you see different things, being able to run around the rugby pitch with the boys, and but I guess the big part of that is just feeling like you can contribute and you feel more part of it, not watching from a distance.
And having an excuse not to throw yourself back into the front row is great.
Yeah.
It's a great result.
Good stuff, mate. Well, listen, it's an incredible story, and we do appreciate you. I agree with you. Saf did an amazing job on the Southland Tribune. We're going to put the article, link it in the show notes and below on the Southland Tribune, so people who haven't caught it have had a read. It takes a lot to be able to open up like that and tell the story. I know that was something you had to mull over, but I'm really glad that you did. Because I think we need more of this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So really appreciative of your time and your words. And for a bloke that doesn't want to talk a story to 43 minutes later be finishing the interview, I think that's a good sign.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. It's been a cool experience, and first time I've done something like this, so it's cool. Good to be here.
Just take it easy on Blues next time.
Good luck for the weekend, mate.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Here he is, Dayna Cunningham. Man, that is some story. And as we've said, the great article that Logan wrote back end of last year will be in the show notes, and also on the page you'll find this on the Southland Tribune. It's well worth a read, mate. Did you put that forward as one of your... what's the award that you're nominated for? Your Voyager Media Award? That would have had to have
you're
almost...
actually right, I did. Yes.
I bet you did.
It was in the, what is in the package, yes.
Yeah.
That's coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, end of May 24th, to go on the Big Bird to Auckland for a couple of days. It's a long way to go to watch someone else get up on the stage and collect a trophy, though.
It's well worth getting the tux out.
So just in case you didn't know, even though he's very embarrassed about talking about it, we like to bring it up as much as we can for said embarrassment. Logan is one of the finalists for, what was the category? This is how much it means to me. I can't even know. Regional journalist, local journalist of the year at the upcoming Voyager Media Awards. So. Yeah.
But and like with the Dayna story, I mean, the big part of it was how open he was.
Yeah.
It was willing to be, and I think that's what made it. And great work from him.
Does good stuff. Righto, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. So the weekend ahead, what have we got? Steeler on the road.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon against the Tactics up there. Tactics are obviously been flying pretty high this season, but what a great chance to give them, figuratively, a bloody nose.
Yes. Sharks at home up against the Tuatara, who also are reasonably handy.
Top of the table. It's not. They don't chuck an easy one to come down.
Doesn't get easier. Does not get easier. So that's Saturday afternoon, actually. So
is it 3 o'clock game? Is it
something like that?
2 o'clock.
Yeah,
2 o'clock for Rapid League.
2 o'clock for Rapid League. 3 o'clock for the main game. So a bit of Saturday afternoon. So that'll be interesting. And Waikiwi, they've got a celebration.
125th, I believe, and the senior team's taken on Mosman there. So big day at Waikiwi. So all the best to everyone involved.
Geez, Heathy will be backing up.
I know. I was talking to him about that. He said, well, the least he can just go there and relax, where he was a little bit more involved in the Riverton one. But yeah, it's been a... You think about it, he's highly involved in the Westpac Chopper ride too.
He's had a hell of a 3 weeks.
He's been a big
hasn't he? Good stuff. Thank you, boys. We'll catch you next week, eh?
Sure.